So, hello there, Jill Woodworth here with my next guest, Caroline Hurry, on Conversations with Friends, this podcast that I just started. She is number 2, and we've been talking back and forth for a while. A good friend that I met, let's see, we were just talking about that, and you can interrupt me. I met her through I think it was through Facebook group, and it was during COVID. And
I wonder
I
if
think
it
I was
wasn't
in
the
your group,
coterie. Yes,
and
yes.
I really liked your writing. I know I read your book, Rain. I wanted to give you a little more of an introduction. So, Caroline is, and I have all these printouts of your stuff I found online and stuff I wrote about
Oh
you.
my
So, I
word.
may have to edit this and put it on the front end if I don't get through it. I want to make you sound like the amazing divine human that you are, and the incredible writer and expresser of the depth of living through this humor and the wit that you have. You're a dynamic storyteller, seasoned journalist, author with a unique voice that blends humor, insight, a dash of irreverence. Caroline's work spans decades and continents, with an impressive career in journalism and travel writing that's taking you to places few have seen and led to encounters that inspire and fuel your storytelling, as well as your life in South Africa. You live in South Africa. I know you were born in Zimbabwe.
It was Rhodesia then, but
Rhodesia.
Zimbabwe now.
Okay. We are here to talk about her latest book and have a conversation. I guess what I wanted to say is I just felt a camaraderie, and we'll talk about that in this podcast with Caroline. She jumped right into my mind when I thought, who am I going to interview next? Because I have all these connections from working hard on social media that just got kind of lost when my Facebook got hacked.
Thank you so much for that gorgeous introduction. I'm actually quite overcome. There's a golden thread, a frequency that draws us to each other. I felt the same way towards you when I saw your podcast and I heard the things that you had to say, and was that sense of seeking your sovereignty and relating to others who are also seeking their sovereignty and trying to make sense of this kind of craziness. It's a collective coming together, I think.
The mutual calling. And is that
Yeah.
an oracle girl? The gold frequency. I remember at the beginning.
Yes, she does talk very much about the gold frequency, but a lot of great philosophers actually do refer to it.
Thank you. You've written quite a number of books, from navigating newsroom jungles to scaling bestseller peaks. Award-winning journalist Caroline Hurry unwraps elemental forces in Rain. 16 secrets from 6 queens to rule your world with clarity, connection, and sovereignty. And learn to navigate relationships in flow. 21 secrets to refresh your relationships. The Writer's File. Splash It. 99 of the writer. Yes, the right. I'm probably 99 customizable press release tools, texts, layout templates, which topped Amazon's #1 bestseller list in business writing skills, public relations, and business communication skills, with Write Successful Self-Publishing Strategies on a Shoestring. Amazing.
Oh my goodness me. So I'll just say that I went from being a travel journalist until they started these draconian restrictions.
Right.
And,
Right.
telling
That's
people
kind of
to
where
do
I
things.
crossed is.
And for me, it was a no-brainer, because when there was no repercussions for anybody who was going to put who knows what into our bodies, I just thought, no, this. So the work dried up completely. Not there were no more paid assignments, nothing. But luckily I had some money saved, and I thought, well, what can I do? I can write. I know how to write. I know a fair amount of editing. Oh well, I'll just write books then. I really had no idea what I was getting into, and I think that's what I like about your approach too. You just jump in, and there you go. You play the cards you've now been dealt, and you just carry on from there. And it's better than doing nothing. And for me, writing Rain was to try and make sense of this bewildering upside down world I found myself in, where I could not relate to my friends, to my family, to anybody, because, it was just very, very odd. Very
Same.
odd. I had neighbors clanging pots at the moon and, getting these snide jokes, not just snide jokes about, people who didn't want to adhere to the narrative, but also really invasive emails reminding me to, and you spoke about this too, to come in for this injection and that injection.
Oh, yeah.
It was really like in my, face.
It ramped up 100%. Like
It
it was
ramped
there
up.
before, but
But,
now they,
but what really surprised me the most was how many people just went along with it. And that was really even more bewildering, because it was that whole sense of dealing with a new reality, but also seeing people in a completely different light, because they were nothing how you thought they were. And then you wonder, well, am I only just noticing it now, or
yeah,
like what? And kind of realizing, okay, well, let's just, do something. What can I do? What can I
right.
do? Well, you can talk, I can write, or, make something in the kitchen, or,
Yep.
look after my hens or whatever. And that's one step at a time. And the next thing, you've made a whole lot of mistakes on the way. But that in itself, I think, lends itself to either a book or a podcast, because people need to feel, and that's how you made me feel, is that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one feeling completely like, what? And that's
Disoriented.
what I meant by that kind of golden thread that connects many of us via our listeners, via our readers. So, for me as a writer, I can have like 75 people say, oh no, that's rubbish. But just one person can say, you know what, I do relate to that, and I see where she's going with this. And
Yes.
I feel that way too. So
Yes.
it's like what you said as well about the imposter syndrome. I relate to that so
Do you?
well. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
I
good
really
to hear.
do.
It's like
But then
I can.
on the plus side, I also find quite often that the most sort of arrogant, confident people, it's like that empty vessels make the most noise again, because they're often just repeating what they either been paid to say, or what they've now been coerced. Yeah, I mean, through their thoughts and through the media and so on.
Oh, yeah.
And
Unbelievable.
and
Yeah, you really expressed that well. Just the like utter like almost like, I don't want to say ripping away, but dismantling of everything you
yeah,
might have questioned
yeah,
was real,
yeah,
as far as
yeah,
friendships in
yeah,
families that
yeah, yeah,
just were not
absolutely.
seeing what was right beneath the surface that was, I felt, was fairly easy for me to see. And maybe it's the nature of
Yes.
writer,
Yeah,
news podcaster.
absolutely. For me,
You're
it
up
was just,
here. You're kind of looking
yeah,
down on a lot. You're
yeah,
over here, you're seeing this.
yeah,
But you're not locked into that like compartment where so many people live, in that those reality tunnels. And I'm not saying that I'm not in a reality tunnel, but I see that connection between us, like you're really has been exposed to a lot and kind of integrated the lessons from that too. So I don't know, it just feel, and what
but
you said.
that's what your podcast does, is that you actually provide the space for
Yeah,
someone to just rest a little while and feel like they're being related to, not always agreeing with, but being related to, and just to consolidate a little bit, because there's so much information being thrown at
oh
us
man,
from every direction. I mean, it's just insane. I can't even listen to the news anymore. It's just,
nope.
it's very hard to maintain a perspective. and I think that's where I was going in my Rooster Diaries a bit as well, because it's also we are connected with nature, and if we ignore that connection, and if we get so sucked into this kind of cyber world of likes and votes and blah blah blah, and at the same time, some of it is very real. I mean, farmers are being attacked, I think, all over the world, which is
so
and again, it comes back to, well, what can I do? Because you can't necessarily change the world, but what you can do, what all of us can do, is we can dream a better world, because we are dreamers. And I think that we came here to dream. We came here to manifest and then enjoy playing in our manifestations. I mean, that's like the ideal. But then it's almost like a game, because all of these like obstacles and things, and they're serious obstacles, get kind of thrown into the mix, which sidetrack us this way or sidetrack us that way. And it's not even about right or wrong. You just have to go and ground yourself and get in touch with what is actually real again. And I think chickens do that for me. Anything like growing things does that.
Well, I really want to ask you some of these questions so you can talk a little bit more about the Rooster Diaries. I had no idea really what the book was about until you shared the link with me, and I listened to it, and then I wanted to read it. I like to hear and read.
Well, the one thing I've learned about publishing is that you have certain genres, but very often the genres are kind of oversaturated. So you'll have a genre like of raising chickens, raising hen, and it is very saturated. And for me, as a writer, I don't want to tread the same ground that everybody else has trodden, because then you might as well read 5 books and you can barely differentiate between the others. And so I think if you write from your own experience and perspective, then it is true. And obviously I had to sort of change names and things, and fictionalize it. But I mean, for the record, I had several encounters with a very irate neighbor in his underpants.
I wanted to ask about that character. I was like, I know that guy.
Oh my gosh.
I've seen him.
No, I mean, it's actually, but you know what? That's life, that you can have sometimes these absolute neighbors from hell sometimes. I mean, it's the luck of the draw. It really is the luck of the draw. But that's the whole thing. And you go through your life sometimes in what seems to be an absolute hellish time. I mean, crazy, crazy times. Yeah. But it's like Oracle Girl says, and she is one of my influences.
Teachers, kind of.
We all have people that we, and I really enjoy her work very much.
Yes, and I do. I really listened to her a lot and followed her pretty closely at the beginning.
Because what I like about what she says and what is actually true is that whether it's hellish or whether it's really nice, thank you very much, none of it is permanent. It's dissolving all the time. You are dissolving all the time. Your identity is dissolving all the time. And that's why I actually said through Alec the Rooster, this whole nonsense about identity and kind of self-identity and, where it leads to is that all of our identities are none are fluid. As your body changes, your identity changes with it. And
we haven't been taught that.
A series of yous. And that's how I try and portray it with Alec the Rooster, is that he's super confident because he's very in tune with Mother Nature and all of that. And he sees himself as a bird god. He comes from a long line of, bird-headed gods and so on. And he has no problems about feeling not good enough or that thing where
just it's all right there. Pretty. Yeah. You said, I think, what did you say about animals' emotions being a little bit simpler? Let's see.
Oh, but that's so true. I mean, you know that if
Yeah.
you've lived with animals, I mean, any animal, they're all incredible. I mean, I had, because I adopt dogs as well.
Oh, you do?
And well, not in large amounts. I've just adopted two, and then I've had to put one down last week. And
Right. Yeah,
it's
you
kind
had
of,
mentioned.
but I remember one dog that I adopted, when she saw me patting the other dog or giving him some love, she used to literally let out a howl of anguish and jealousy. That's what I mean. Their emotions are so immediate, and it's the same with
Authentic.
the chickens. If you've ever had chickens, so if you throw over a tasty morsel over the fence, even a snail or whatever, whoever grabs it first will grab it and run and go and hide so that she can enjoy it all on her own and doesn't have to share. Which, they've got very almost, well, when I say human, it's because humans have emotions too, So,
And we're
and actually, so do animals. I mean, yeah. And
yes. Yeah. So I was
And
gonna
actually, I also the reason I started keeping chickens in the first place was
and you've
because
been
I
doing
was
it
just
for
so,
20 years, right? A couple
oh yeah,
decades.
more, like
Wow.
20,
Yeah, I want to
21,
hear about why
probably
you
about
started.
25 years. Um, and only because I was so appalled at the cruelty.
Right.
And that's the whole thing between ignorance and like learning something. When I learned how our eggs were produced, also, when I was much younger, I kind of grew up on a farm in a very
Did
sort of
you?
rural place, and it was fantastic. And they had everything, pigs and cows, and used to wander down
Wow.
and get our milk fresh from the cow, and in gallons. And I sort of grew up with that idealized idea of farming that
Uh-huh.
I had known, and the reality is just so awful. So then
Yeah.
I thought, well, veganism is fine for some, but it's not necessarily the answer because they also destroy a lot of wild
Right.
habitats that, planting, crops and what have you. So then I thought, well, if I have chickens, then I know where my eggs are coming from. So
Yep.
it kind of started like that. And, so it was basically, it's quite easy to keep chickens if you've got the space. So if you've got a fairly
Right.
big yard, and you can, well, what I've done every time, if you've got an old a windy house, or what we call in this country a zozo hut, or some kind of shed, it's very easy to convert.
Wow. That's good to know. Yeah, I'm not ready to jump into that just because, as I've shared with you, we're moving, and I think just starting a garden is going to be the first step. But our neighbors where we're moving have chickens. I have
Oh, that's fantastic. But you see, that's fantastic. That is so fantastic because, first of all, chickens are a huge responsibility.
mm-hmm.
So I've literally
I'm
gone
like
from,
hands
I
off.
used to fly around, I used to fly to a new destination sort of once a month. I have not left the house. Well, I've left the house. I've left the garden. But I haven't, not gone very far in like 4 years. And one of the reasons is that it's a full-time occupation. They need
Yeah.
feeding 3 times a day, unless they're roaming far and wide. They do. So it's a big responsibility. Oh, there are ways around it, and I'm not going to be held
Yeah.
hostage by them. And when I'm thinking about renewing my US visa just to come for a visit. Why not?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've got to first renew my visa, and I'm thinking about it because if you do it now, while it's still valid, which mine is,
Oh,
and
right. Before they
apparently,
change all the
yeah,
regulations.
and apparently, yeah. So actually, it's so on my to-do list because, and apparently, you don't have to go and do the interview and all that stuff. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
think people don't really understand the level of commitment that it is. A friend of mine, that
Well,
woman
this
that
is
I
why
interviewed,
you're in the best possible position with your neighbors having it,
right?
because then it's like it's a very casual arrangement as I have here. I mean, I have the hens, and I grow vegetables, but often just pass them some eggs over the fence, and she gives me some of her flowers. That's how it actually
Yeah,
works, because that's the
I love
whole,
that.
yeah, because that's the whole sort of concept of homesteading, as it were, or suburban homesteading, I'm going to say, because I actually do live in a suburb, even though I'm off the grid.
Right. And you
Um,
were saying about South Africa, which I don't know how many people understand, like the changes that have happened and how really homesteading seems to be
well, I'm
survival.
just saying that if you lived here and you don't have sort of solar and or borehole, or at least one of the two, it's not a happy situation. I
Yeah.
mean, places are out of water for days and days at a time. So so it's been a good sort of testing ground,
Oh,
to
yeah.
see how far you can actually get. And I mean, as well, during the COVID, which was so ridiculous in South Africa, you were forbidden to buy certain foodstuffs, like
Really?
roast chicken. Yeah, like roast chicken was one of the strange examples. Um, Not that I would ever slaughter one of my own hens, because strict. I just can't. I
Yeah,
can't
no, I
even.
get that. After reading your book, I have two. My cousin has chickens, my
Yeah.
friend has them, and yep, they're not.
But if you're thinking of homesteading and just to do your garden is fantastic. I mean, you know what? Even if you live in an apartment, I say to people, well,
It's where
put
I've been
some pots
living,
on
and
the
yeah,
balcony. Put some pots on the balcony. It's the
yep.
easiest thing in the world to grow lettuce and rockets,
Yes.
and it really is so easy. And if a few peppers up a stick, whatever. Yeah. So start where you are
I
and do
love
what
that.
you can. And people who keep chickens, often find they have more eggs than they can use. Well, it depends on how many hens they've got and what have you. But yeah, so that's and there your neighbors actually got all the responsibility, and
Yeah.
you get to
Well,
benefit.
hopefully we haven't really met them yet because we're not moved all the way moved in. So
Well, I hope they're nice,
I do
because
too. Knock
but
wood.
I generally find sort of rural people are very nice. If you just treat them with generosity and kindness, and I think that just goes for wherever you
Yeah.
are and whatever you're doing. Because I've heard so many and read about as well. I've been lucky and unlucky on that score. Complaints about the cockerels crowing in the morning.
Oh,
Now, I have always loved that
oh
sound.
man. Are you kidding
I
me?
love that sound. I
Yeah.
absolutely do. I mean, maybe you think know as a podcaster, but well, you've experienced. But my earliest audible memory, because we have memories if we think back. My earliest audible memory is the sound of the hardy-daws, which are those big birds with the long beak. I have quite a few here in my garden,
Wow.
and they fly overhead and they make this laughing cry. And the cockerel, because in those days we kept, everybody did. Everybody did in those days. You had a garden and you had a chicken
Yeah.
house, and you know it
That's how
wasn't
you were
that
raised
unusual.
too. You're
Yeah,
growing up on a farm. I know my mother grew up on not like any kind of a big farm, but they had a garden and they had chickens and so yeah.
sure. Yeah,
No,
I actually grew up on the grounds of a very, very expensive, exclusive boarding school for boys.
really.
Yeah, called Hilton College. And the farm was part of the school. And I actually lived in the school because my father was
I was going to
both
ask you about
the
your
English,
parents.
well, he was the English master at the time. And, you lived in the school. You sort of
Right,
lived there,
right.
your
Okay.
family lived there. Um, so yeah,
This,
but before that, in Rhodesia, everybody, the neighbors had chickens. You had chickens. It just seemed more. Maybe that was just in Africa. I don't know. Possibly.
well, I know in the US it hasn't been like that, but during COVID. Now you can go buy fresh eggs just driving down the road. In my town, there's probably 25 places at least where people are putting eggs out for sale.
Oh, that's
Yep.
fantastic. That's
Yep.
fantastic to hear. That
I try to
really is.
buy them, because there's just so much better than from the grocery store, and they're cheaper. That people don't overprice, they don't overprice them. They make them so they're less
And
store.
even if they're more expensive, I would rather give that money to a family or whatever
Absolutely.
who's doing their best than to a corporate who's taking all the profits. You always have the situation where the farmers are shortchanged every time. The corporates scoop off
A whole other
everything else. And I'm sure you've seen with growing vegetables what you grow compared to what you actually buy in the store. It's like, how do these apples and things stay fresh for months? Some of them, like it's like that appeal thing that Bill Gates has got going.
Right. They're like Frankenfruits. They're just weird if you look at
Yeah.
them compared to when I went and I volunteered on this farm. You worked for like 4 hours once a week and you get a share. It's a program. It's a government funded program, but you get a share of vegetables every week that you work.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, it totally changed my understanding of. See, I'm kind of new to the background that you're sharing. I've tuned that out for so many years till COVID about the factory farming and just the way animals are treated and how they're just so disrespected and thought of as just meat.
It's awful, Jill, and it's awful because I can tell you now, and I think we're both on the same page. I never consented to that. I never, ever, ever, ever consented to that. And we sold this sort of pre-packaged stuff in the supermarkets. And it's only if you go and do your own research that you realize behind the scenes,
oh no,
animals are treated atrocious. Oh my word.
yeah.
I know. It's just awful. And they're so cynical, some of these corporates, is that they have the nerve to put labels that are totally false and misleading, saying things like sow friendly or even free range chickens, which is really neither here nor there because they just pack so many into such a crowded space. And
twisting the words, kind of.
I mean, that's the only thing is I can't change the world, but I can change my habits. I'm in a position where I can change my buying habits for a start, So I would, wherever I can, I support smaller farms. And some of them because there's there's a place up the road from me, and I'm very fortunate in that way because I've traveled a lot of places in the world, and do you know how hard it is to find raw milk?
Oh,
Wow.
I can
And I'm
only
talking
imagine.
places like Denmark and Sweden and Bulgaria and places that were traditionally famous for their yogurt and stuff. Forget it.
Really?
It's outlawed. We're not allowed to. It's just so crazy. So I'm very fortunate that up the road from me, there's a person who has like a specialist shop and she sells raw milk, and I make my own cheese and I make my own kefir and so on and so on.
Man, that's just awesome. I love it.
Well, it is because I know her and I know that it's actually, but you know what, Jill, and I'm sure you've experienced this. It's when you learn about something and you read about something and you take something on board and you think about something and you start thinking, well, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to change? How can I get some of that? Or, it's for example, I mean, I don't know if these are true or not true. I've heard about med beds. But if there's such a thing about the med beds, what I'm in, I want a session on one of those for sure, because there's so much in me that could really use a good tune-up.
I hear you.
Yeah. So
but
I've found in life, if I've really thought about something and thought about how I'm going to do it and how I would like it to be, that is part and parcel of dreaming something into manifestation. And you do that, and then very often it's fantastic and yay. But then there's unforeseen things that completely sideswipe you because that you hadn't even factored in, but there you are. And now there's a fresh sense of responsibilities to take care of and whatever. I mean, that's the whole beauty of life, but that itself is just dissolving in any case all the time as we are, and none of it's kind of permanent, static.
Yep.
So yeah. Sorry, I've gone right off the topic.
No, you haven't. Not at all. I think it all lines up. And I think what I wanted to say was talk a little bit. I think the timing of your book is fantastic because, like I said, there's people all over the place now that are crazy, that are putting out eggs. So to me, it appealed to me. I have just a little bit of knowledge about it, and just from friends, and it's just, I was pleasantly surprised by because you framed the book with, a fictional kind of based on your life, but with characters through the eyes of the Roosters, a story that led into, and then you explained into all the nitty gritty details of raising chickens and hens, and your personification of maybe I'm not using the right writing words, but of the Roosters, and it's a beautiful.
You know what it is? It's kind of part and parcel of my innate shyness, because if I put something into a character, it lets me take a step back. So whether that character is my rooster or whether that character is Mem, which is very much based on me, really, it allows me to, not put myself out there as such. I can say, no, well, it's just a character.
There's a wall, kind of. There's
a a wall there.
I wouldn't even say it's a wall. It's just there's
just a bit of maybe perspective really about it all. And I have to say that this time around, where I am now, I have lovely neighbors, really lovely neighbors. So, and they all, you know why? They've all been let down by their government completely and utterly. So they have zero faith in our.
So you're all kind of in the same.
Yeah. And this could happen actually to any country. It could. I'm not saying it will, but it's a possibility. I don't think we're the only country this has happened to, where everything just, I mean, it's bad. Yeah. I mean, in town, we've had one street, main street, just blew up, like from a gas explosion. The entire, I think is at least 3 years ago, still left like that. Nothing's like been done, because there's just so much bribery and corruption that money that's allocated to fix things, etc., just never reaches where it's supposed to reach. So everybody here has to, on some level, have a plan B. And that plan B might even just be having a swimming pool that you can at least flush the toilet using the water from there. Yeah. So
that's next level. And you're right. I mean, I think, COVID made a lot of people aware of the fragility of our existence, and that things could just
which who knows which way. I think there's a lot of people invested in telling us that we are not free, because we are actually free and we are actually sovereign, but you have to claim your sovereignty. You have to say, I don't consent, and no. And so many of us aren't aware of that. And you know what? I'm so guilty of it myself. I mean, the last time I was traveling, I think through San Francisco, it would have been San Francisco, I actually specifically said to the guy in the airport, I said, please don't put me through your scanner machine. I just don't want to go through it. Don't consent. I've been, scanned so many times. I don't want all these. And he would not give me the option.
Really?
It was just like, hell no. Pushed me in there, and I thought, well, either I get myself nuked or I stay here.
Right.
And who knows when I'm ever going to get home.
You never get back.
Well, exactly. And, they do this at some airports. And then I hear other people saying, no, they just said, I don't want that and I want to opt out. And then
Well,
you
I mean, not
can opt
everybody can do that. I'm sure it's situational. Like some of the people that you push back against are not going to tolerate it, and some do. I mean,
out.
those
Yeah.
recommendations of oh yes, every time you can get through a scanner without going, get around it. I don't believe that, and I think yeah. But
Yeah.
oh man, that made me think of something that I forgot.
But I'm hearing that as well. And also another way COVID changed me personally was that I just suddenly saw doctors so completely
That's it.
differently because they were all,
You read
as
my
the
mind.
same with journalists, were parroting the same lines, writing out the same script. And as soon as you dug just a little deeper, then you discovered, oh, but wait, they're earning a fat commission on
Oh,
every injection, or they're earning a big commission to punt this and punt that. So, if you could see that and lose all faith in and professions, I was in both at one stage.
right. You
I
said
was a
you
nurse
were
at
a
one
nurse.
before I became a journalist, and
Did you
and now I just
see?
look at that and just think, they just paid stooges really just to promote whatever the person who's paying or the company who's paying wants, promoted. So I think people are seeing through that.
Right. They really, really are. And it ripped it
They
off,
really
ripped the
are.
Band-Aid off for me. I mean, I had my suspicions, but I was really
Mm.
surprised working kind of in the cannabis industry that that's so many people in the cannabis industry followed the programming after all the talk about in the US, all the talk about how the government suppressed the plant and there's all this legislation that's been kind of shuffled around and the FDA does weird things to keep the cannabis kind of under control so they can profit off it. They couldn't. So people know that are in the industry. Everybody jumped in with the whole agenda, and I was like, that was like the final piece for me where I really had to sit with myself and be like, you're on your own here. All these people just kept pulling back, but the medical industry, wow, um, they just have. There's so many layers of it, and so many people get trapped in it is what I see. And I don't mean to go on a huge rant here, but friends that I know from years, they turn into their questioning their bodies, not ever thinking of doing something that might not be what the doctor says or
Well,
but
I
I'm
can interrupt you right there and say, first of all, we have cannabinoid receptors all over our body.
I
It's
know
innate.
there's evidence of it. It's scary.
And I know my mother, my late mother, who was diagnosed with glaucoma, and it's a long thing. But the ophthalmologist said to her, the only thing that's actually going to help you is cannabis. That's the only thing that will
The doctor
actually
told her
help
that.
you.
Good.
So, yeah, and it doesn't matter how you can smoke it, you can take it as a tea,
So many ways.
whatever way you choose to ingest it as an oil. So for me, for any government to demonize a plant, we're talking about a plant here, it's just insane. So in South Africa, and often it takes one trailblazing woman to change the status quo. And I actually wrote about a woman in Rain, whose home was raided at 2 a.m. A long
Okay.
story.
I don't
And
remember the
it's,
details, but I remember
yeah,
that.
yeah. But long story short, they put her through such hell. Her husband,
I think now I'm
partner,
remembering.
he was actually shot dead in their bed.
Yes.
But
Oh my gosh. Yes.
a
Now it's
lot, yeah. Oh gosh, I don't know, maybe I can't remember the details, as possibly a kilogram of weed. I don't know, it was just some ridiculous amount. But because of her, and she did not take this lying down. She fought back every which way, and she actually got so many people on her side, and she started a whole movement. And cannabis is now totally legal in South Africa. You can grow it,
fantastic.
but it largely thanks, they were known as the cannabis couple. or the Dacha couple.
The one that got the wife, the husband that got shot.
Yeah. And the thing is that it's just so crazy, but it's like anything. There's papers being written on how effective herbal and other remedies can be, but if it doesn't suit big pharma's agenda, then you can forget it.
I know.
And you wonder as well, if they take over the industry, what are they doing to it? Are they maybe genetically modifying it?
Oh, they are. I know they are. I know enough about it. In the US, it's all about, positioning it so they can profit off of it the most. And it's, and just making the THC count, just kind of bastardizing the plant, what I see. And then with the FDA, oh boy, they, in CBD, the non-psychoactive aspect of cannabis is a great med for kids with seizures, as you probably know. And so what they do,
it's fantastic. Parkinson's, seizures. I've actually seen footage where somebody who's having terrible seizures, sort of Parkinson, is given the cannabis, and you see the results almost instantly. They just relax, breathe. It's just. And you see, but that's the whole thing for me, and I can only speak for myself about being sovereign, is that I do not wish to be beholden to anybody, not to Big Pharma. They don't get to tell me what I must take and not take, or what I can take and not take. It's just
right. Oh, I know. I mean, you were talking about,
because if you can't call your body your own body, well, if your body does not belong to you, then actually who does it belong to?
Good question.
Those are my thoughts. And
right. I'm telling you though, with the doctors, I just start, like you were saying, not consenting. So I have been kind of caught up in the system with helping my kids, and there's some things that I kind of have to stay engaged. I have to see a doctor like once a year, and every year, I got off. I had prepared out a bunch of meds and gotten off of them using cannabis. Well, they didn't like that. I mean, every time you go in, they want you to get like a mammogram. I kept not getting it. I kept not getting it, and she would lecture me every time. And so finally, this past year, I went in and I asked. I'm like, I'm not getting a mammogram, and she's like, okay. Like I just said, I wasn't doing it. I said, I've read the research. I don't think that the risks outweigh the benefits outweigh the risks for me personally. Anybody else that wants to, that's fine, but I'm not getting it.
Like, I can honestly say I've never had a mammogram in my life.
Good.
Hell no. But I also wrote about somebody else in my first book, Rain, who's actually a schoolgirl friend of mine, and she's on the coach with Cecily. She was diagnosed with like stage 4 lung cancer, and she was literally given very little time to live. In fact, she was in part of a circle, and everyone expected that she would go first. Long story short, she refused chemo. She was forced to have a bout of radiation just to visit South Africa. And when she came, because she now lives in New Zealand, she lives in South Africa. And when she was in South Africa, she started on the cannabis oil, right? And she continued on the cannabis oil, went back to New Zealand, continued, the Rick Simpson, whatever. Right. Well, all I can tell you is that she is still going so strong. She's an amazing artist. She does often sort of share her work. She really does beautiful paintings. But what can I say? She was diagnosed a good 6-7 years ago now. And that's what's kept her going. Oh, and I mean, the irony is she still smokes.
Oh, because nicotine, or
she smokes. Well, she does oil, but she smokes. Yeah, she smokes nicotine, because oddly enough, I don't know if you've read any of the research about there being nanoparticles in many injectables, not just which is scary because it can be in the Novocaine that your dentist is injecting
I
into
just
your
heard
jaw,
that.
all of that stuff. But guess what dissolves those nanoparticles?
To a degree.
Nicotine.
Nicotine. Yeah, you didn't know that.
Nicotine. Yeah.
Because my
So
partner, my boyfriend is a smoker. He's withdrawing now, but like I was always curious about nicotine just because I knew there were good they again they bastardized that plant too and put a bunch of
well,
chemicals
I tell you, the smoking of cigarettes is really harmful for you because of the
chemicals they put in.
chemicals that they've adulterated it with. Because
Yes.
nicotine itself is like an antiparasitic. So
Yeah.
it kills, parasites basically. That's what it does. It's the same. I used to grow it for a while.
Did you?
Um, oh gosh, yes. And I loved the smell of, I'd like dry it and harvest it and then steep it in whiskey
Oh my
or
goodness.
brandy. And then just to get that gorgeous, rich smell, which I just loved. It made me think of a plush leather office. And,
Oh my goodness. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. That's so cool.
If you're gonna smoke, and I do know, then I would go for those organic cigarettes.
Yep.
Either grow your own tobacco, but or use a nicotine patch.
Right. The patches. I've heard that's
You can do a nicotine patch and just slap that on, which is what, because whatever. But I've heard that actually dissolves the nanoparticles, and they've also demonized nicotine.
yeah.
Or that when it's actually it's actually the chemicals that are doing you the harm.
Right.
So it's
crazy.
the more you sort of look at stuff, the more you get to a stage where you think, well, I don't believe a word they say anymore.
I know.
Because
it's just turn it upside down, and then it's probably more accurate.
Exactly. Yeah. If you go to the other extreme of what you're being told, you're likely closer to the truth, and you might as well, because funnily enough, I've read a few times that people who ingest cannabis in whichever way are very difficult to program.
Right. It breaks the programming. In fact,
because it breaks the programming. You just think, what? I know this is rubbish. It's like rubbish, and I think it gives you a certain amount of levity as well, where you can just laugh at situations that are just so ridiculous that all you can actually do is laugh.
The absurdity of life. Yes.
Yeah. And that's also like that about my rooster, is because roosters are very absurd, but that's what I love about them, because they are just so cocksure of themselves. And
that language you use.
They never, ever doubt that they are the king of the heap, and that's it. And it's kind of, I love that about it. I find that quite, I wish we could be more like that. And, you talk a lot about self-compassion, and I love that too. Because even talking to you and talking to myself, I can see how hard we can be on ourselves.
Oh, I know.
Still, even
every
now,
day. It's
every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Just having a little bit more of it, like it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. But I love that phrase, speak out even if your voice shakes. Because even if you're the only one, and very often I am, and my sister's like, sit down, and I don't get invited so much to, because whatever. It's that whole thing again. Well, people know where they stand with me, and I think genuine people respect that. I don't have to agree with you at all, but I respect somebody who has the courage to say what they think, even if it's not the same as what I think, instead of trying to say the right thing and the politically correct thing, which is just death to conversation.
And
that external program. Real. And I don't know if you find the same, Jill. I can't do small talk anymore. I find it really hard. Really, really hard. It's
I never was good at it. Well, unless I was drinking.
I mean, It's like people who are absolutely sports mad. No, I love watching stuff like ice skating, and in my youth I played a lot of tennis and squash and whatever. And I know that you run and you've always loved running, but it's not a spectator sport. It's for
No,
me.
it's not. It's not for
No,
anybody. No.
you know.
It's a really
People's
introspective
comments like,
sport.
did you watch the game last night? What? No, what game? Who played? Who won? They look at me like, but I'm just not there.
I tried to get into sports here and there, but
No.
my boyfriend is a rabid sports fan, follows a lot of sports teams, and that's cool. I mean, and I get it. I get we've had discussions, about the drama and the distraction. He's like, boy, I'm not listening to anything else right now. I'm trying to tune out.
I think men need sport in that way because
Primal.
Yeah, it's absolutely primal. And it's a way for them to sort of bond with each other. But for women, I don't know. I mean, I used to love the tennis, but that was only because I was playing it. Then I'm interested in it. But otherwise,
I'm right with you.
So much to distract us as well. People who get like so into sort of politics and this and that and the next thing. And I mean, it's just for me crazy to watch some people absolutely melting down over this person's election or that person's election. But these public meltdowns, and I think to myself, do they set the camera up and then start boo-hooing? I mean, it's so embarrassing. Well, for me, I mean, I would hate to be crying on camera over somebody that I've never actually met or don't know personally. But so that's what I say.
It's a rigged game. The rigged game.
So you sometimes just live in this world or this realm or whatever it is, because I'm not even sure of a damn thing that they've told us. Not a thing. There's nothing in this world I can say.
I'm right with you.
This for sure is true, because there's not one thing that I can say, except maybe taxes.
Yeah.
And what they say, death and taxes. Because
I think you bring it all together, all of this wisdom that you have and your lived experience and your philosophy and, a lot of information that you've researched into this book. I mean, this is what you're talking about now. It's all in the book with these characters. And I'm hoping that I can publish the answers that you wrote in a blog along with the podcast, we have the answers that I sent you that are so articulately worded and detailed and just bring out so many truth bombs. I'm like reading them. I'm like, wow, that's like a book right there. So I want to make sure that.
There you go. Good. I wanted to say that I think what's kind of unique about my chicken book is that I come from the African perspective, and most people are brought up with sort of Christian beliefs and so on, and very little attention is paid to the old gods or river gods or nature gods, which I come from the African perspective because that's what I've grown up with. But I'm sure, in fact, I know that there's very much the equivalent in every culture in the world, where they have their version of nature. But I mean, even, I can think of. And then that to me was interesting because the way that it seeps into languages. So with the African languages, whether you're talking from North to South Africa or East or West, they have the same name for their god, which is Nyam. And
I was going to ask.
And then that sort of permeates sort of everything. And the same sort of word for the original chicken. Where did the chicken come from? And then it's like that, a koko. And they also have that word in their language.
Okay.
A koko. So it's almost like the word cock.
Yes.
Cock. So I like to look for like similarities in that way. And when I say the old gods, like there was that, the god who also used to come out of the sea, and they have similar gods again in Africa that live in the rivers. And the people still actually, many of them believe in those gods still.
Yeah.
And Christianity, when the missionaries came here, especially to Southern Africa, you had like Stanley Livingstone and David Livingstone and the other Stanley chap. That was completely disregarded. And they said, no, you can't believe in this nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. This is your God. This is your Bible. You will follow these rules. And this is how it is. And which I think is not a good thing to do. It's like,
no, it's so disrespectful.
It's so disrespectful. So, and it's actually true.
And you saw that happening.
I've had gardeners who are, this actually happened in real life, that my gardener was plagued by this demon that his ex-girlfriend had literally set on him. And the culture here is that they do raise their beds on brick to prevent the tokolosh, which is another sort of demon that's in another realm that's got very short legs, so it can't quite jump onto the bed and so on. And the more you sort of learn about their culture and why they believe what they believe, I'm not saying it's right at all.
It's what they believe.
They all share these beliefs, and yet when you go into the myths and you go into these creatures, like exist, they really, they really do. It. Yeah, and the gardener having now, he was really plagued with this thing so that part is true, and he started getting better and better. And I said to Muzi, and then he told me about this Vimbula stuff that they use, which is, as I said in the book, it's petroleum jelly and a little colorant. I mean, that's all it really is. But it shows the power of the placebo effect. I mean, the placebo effect in itself is just to me says, what, your body can heal you. Your mind can heal you.
So true.
You might be told that if you, put this lotion on yourself and, light this candle and do this, it's again coming down to the power of your own belief and your own body and your own mind and all of that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And it goes into the ancestors as well. And I think all of us, no matter what our culture, we all grappling with our ancestors.
I love that. I love that part of what you wrote.
And sure. And, we hear because of our ancestors, because of their strengths and because of the decisions that they made, but they weren't perfect. And I think we inherit their rage as well and their frustration and all of that. And, so I think it's a way of dissolving all of it, dissolving that and just kind of evolving, and it's back to that whole frequency thing. And in that respect, there's, I don't know if it's eternal, but it's infinite, because eternal sort of implies static, or because it's not static, it's changing all the time, but into sort of infinity. And I think so are we.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think the Rooster reminds us of that, and so we can just actually laugh at the absurdity of it, because we tend to take ourselves so very seriously, and really it's going anyway.
We're here for such a brief time, and yeah, absolutely. I love that connection too with the rooster and the animals, and how the impermanence that they intuitively know.
For sure, absolutely. And the other thing is that I think you also find when you podcast, you put things out there, people don't really care. They don't. And that's very liberating. That's very liberating. You know, that's what also, I'm just going to put the light on. It's getting a bit dark.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, put my chickens to bed just now. You know, we become so self-conscious about what other people are thinking about us, and maybe some of them are thinking whatever they think about us. But even if they are thinking whatever they think, it's not for long. They're far too interested in themselves to dwell on you for that long. So you might as well do what you like. You might as well say what you like. You might as well write what you like, because it boils down to that whole thing of just live your life as you see fit, because that's what sovereignty is for me.
Absolutely. And the tie-ins with nature, you know, I think nature and the I want to say the more natural world is kind of laughing at us. You know, they know what it's all there. You know, if you look at the trees and you look at the life cycles, it's like that's, and we just are like trained from day one to override that.
True. And nature won't be rushed. I mean, as we under pressure to hurry up and this deadline and that deadline, get this together and that together. If you let nature, you see, but it's back to factory farming, because there are farms that will keep their chickens under 24-hour lighting to speed up the egg production, which is just so greedy and so cruel. But I don't think it's your average human being. I mean, I can't bear to think that it is. I think it's just kind of corporate policy, and then they just steamroller it over everybody who says no, who doesn't say no, you know. So,
and the more that you're in a fear state, the more you're going to kind of
that's the whole thing, because it's back to, why am I here? Well, maybe I'm here to just dream a better world, because the one I find myself in is a bit insane for my taste. So maybe, and I find in my own way I do that.
You do, absolutely.
It comes with unexpected consequences very often. Something sort of quite random that happens that, oh, okay. But yeah, by and large, I think it's getting better, and I think it's improving. I do.
Yeah, I think the consciousness of people is raising, you know, overall.
I hope so.
Evolving in that way, but it's forcing us really to go within. And yeah, I'm not sure where
so much go within. And you know, Oracle Girl used to talk about 2 timelines.
Yes.
Which kind of made sense to me, because the one timeline that I can kind of see is just so insane. I don't even know where to start. And it seems very anti-nature, very anti-Mother Nature, and that Mother Nature does not stand for.
Exactly.
And the other timeline, which if there is such a thing, I hope I'm on that one, is where people are just going, no, I can do this way. I can say no to this, and I can say no to that. And I can tell you now, I said no to so many things, and it gave me such an empowering feeling to do so. I mean, for example, you know, with the COVID, I was used to go and get a massage here, or a bit of help for my back, or, you know, something's being pulled or something.
Yep.
And then, you know, the therapist would say, well, I need to give your number out because they were checking on everybody. And I said, no, you don't have my permission at all. I'm not having that, or consenting to this, or consent. No, this appointment's now cancelled, you know. And or saying, if I was invited, no, I'm not coming there because I hate what you do to animals. So I don't care if you're Estee Lauder or L'Oreal, or who you are. It's like, no, you can't. I don't consent to what you do.
Yeah, you really found your backbone.
That's a way to say no, and it's such a tiny drop in the ocean, right? It's like that starfish principle, where it's like, my sisters, my friends have often said to me, even on my mother, she said, sometimes you were like really Don Quixote, just tilting at window. Do you really think that this store or that store cares that you're boycotting them? Do you really think they care? No, they don't, but I care. So
yes, that's
and I'm living on my terms. So
it's an energy that you kind of have to be true to it, like the gold frequency. It just, and we're not always going
if you
to.
are true to it, if you are true to yourself, and this exactly comes back to what you said about self-compassion, then it takes care of you. Then somehow you find what you need. So through all of this, I found an excellent raw milk supplier. I found if I want, ivermectin, I've got deliveries here. All sorts of deliveries come because things come to you when you look for them, and on that frequency, when you're coming from sort of that frequency, it just and it's not just things, it's people too. And I feel that's how you and I connected. Yeah. I connected so deeply with your podcast because it was like another me talking. Somebody else who, had the courage to say, well, didn't always feel good enough or competent enough, or that like you must have done something wrong or didn't fit in. And yet you persevered every time and you stayed true to yourself, and you made mistakes and you picked yourself up and you carried on. And that could have been describing my life every step of the way. And you chose what you knew to do best, although I think your writing's brilliant. I mean,
Thank you.
Maybe you can think
about. I think that's eventually where I'll end up.
Yeah. Well, why not?
Why not?
Just, the funny thing is you can start with one skill, and this is what I learned with writing and publishing and so on, is that I feel that I've learned so much about design, which just was a byproduct, and I have such fun playing around in Canva. I love it. Oh yeah, it's such fun. It really
yes,
is.
It leads you. Like podcasting leads you to Canva.
Sure. And you said you had an app that helps edit with the podcasting.
Yes.
And I too am discovering the most wonderful apps for formatting. So you can format your book. You can do this. You can do that.
Yes, you have all the tools put out there. I mean,
that's when AI is really a great thing.
Yes.
Everyone's so scared of AI, and yes, there are reasons that you've got to, like anything, you make it work for you and not the other way around.
Exactly.
And that's, again, it's a form of sovereignty where you could say AI is a tool. Yes, it is. And you just learn how it works. And then, I don't know that much about it. And I'm hardly one to talk, seeing as I've been hacked now so many times.
Yeah.
But I still say that AI has been incredibly useful to me.
Right. We can't look at it as a black and white thing. And though
it's kind of a bit like, well, you can use a sharp knife to kill someone or cut a cake. I mean, there you go. it's how far they're going to take it. Well, I don't know. And then we're back to, well, I hope I'm on the timeline where, our sovereignty remains and we remain free but as I say, I know nothing, Jill. I know. Absolutely nothing.
Go back to the day, I think.
Yeah. I mean, even the calendar we work by is
it's corrupted. I know.
It's almost like everything. So, we have an expression in this country, was a bit rude, kyk nooit en fok voort, which just means.
Say that again.
Well, it's very rude. Kyk nooit en fok voort. It means, if literally translated, it means look north and fuck forward. But so carry on regardless, because that's all.
That's a good one.
That's all we can do, and
all you can do.
And I feel what you're doing, Jill, is that you really are spreading joy. You're bringing joy, and that is your gift, and that's not something you can put a price on, because if you're doing anything for the money, I think your motivation's not wrong. We all need money, But if you were asking if I wanted to make money, I would do something more lucrative.
Yeah.
Because and there again, I've got really lucky. I really have. I've been lucky in that respect. Just super lucky, because I think you can manifest what you need. And I'm not saying that anyone who doesn't, there's anything wrong with them. No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if you look at it, pretty much everything you really need is there for you, you know.
We can get out of our own egoic, our own, the ways that we've been told that we're supposed to be and
yeah.
are. And
because when you're doing something that really is bringing you joy and also bringing joy to other people, for me, that's a currency. It's a currency of care. It's a currency of love.
Currency.
And that's the best currency there is. Because
you can stay true to it, I think, yeah.
And that in turn,
I feel I've been lucky in that way.
Will lead to some kind of way to keep it going.
Yep.
However that way manifests.
Because it's beyond us. I think it's like a soul that's coming through, and we're people that are, opening to it and are aware that we're more than just our human bodies, despite the fact that they continually try to pretend that we aren't. That it's going to be, like the more you can open to the soul coming through, and through the animals, through nature, through just the day-to-day.
Yeah.
With your...
And we had the Bushmen in Southern Africa, and my grandfather was, he was a herpetologist. He used to spend weeks in the desert, like studying them as well, and being with them. And they were completely unencumbered by our laws, by our medicines, none of that. They have their own rituals, the fire and dreaming, and they had what they called dream time, so that if they were going to go hunting the next day, the night before, they would light a fire and they would do a dance, and they would visualize it would be an eland, what we call, but it's like a big moose kind of animal. And that's exactly how they brought about everything. They would dream about it, do a little dance, sing a little song, do a little chant, and the next day they would go after it and just kill what they were going to kill, just the one
that they needed.
Would feed everybody. They weren't going to be greedy and now slaughter,
It's like we need to go back to that.
Yeah.
And they're finding that
not exactly that. I don't relish building a pit lavatory, for example. I'm a bit squeamish on that level.
We've run too far into the
for example, but I hear what you're saying. I wanted to, for me, I love luxury. I'll if I can fly business class, there's no way I'm squeezing myself into no. So I don't see why we can't have it all, because it's all an illusion anyway.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing thunder roll in. That's lovely. It's all an illusion. And I'm manifested so many business class trips for myself free. Like,
that's incredible.
Just because, I promise you, I used to sometimes go and swim. And then while I was swimming, I'd imagine myself reclining in my chair and drinking my champagne and getting the hors d'oeuvres. And I used to do it.
You did it.
Somehow. And you can start simple. I'm sure you've done it with parking places.
Yes.
You really need a place to park, and now it's all full. And you think, okay, perfect parking. It's waiting for me. It always is, right?
It's like it's what I think we're finding is we're so much more than just we're electric. This is true. This is science.
We are electric. We are antenna.
Yes,
we really are. We broadcasting.
Right.
We electric beings. I mean, the whole sort of
electric being.
Electric, and it is I think the forces that repel, they're forces that attract. And it's everything. I think is about.
I think it's science. It's more kind of scientific. than we realize.
Yeah.
The
And I
what
mean,
you're talking about.
dolphins and whales, they communicate through frequency, and very much elephants. I mean, elephants are amazing the way they communicate. I just adore them. And their frequency is so low and rumbling, you can barely hear it, but it's there. And
Wow.
it's, well, trees
Yes,
communicate.
trees.
They
I
produce more tannin in their leaves to stop the grazing, not the grazing, the browsing, and then that's why antelope will browse downwind, because so that the message about the tannin doesn't blow to the next
wow.
tree in time for the antelope to get there. So, and I mean, we know that the natural world is mushrooms, it's mycelium, and
Mycelium. Yep.
that's how you, it's literally, it's a whole
Like the internet underground.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a whole, there's so much to explore, really. There really is.
Yes.
And so much has been hidden from us. And it's this constant dumbing down of us, which makes me think that if they just left us alone, like like some primitive people were just left alone, then our innate ability to dream, to have telepathy,
Yes.
we've
Yes.
got it. We all know we've got it. I mean, you can have an altercation with somebody and you feel exactly what's going on there. Their silence is speaking volumes. You know that they're super pissed off with you or whatever.
Yeah.
They might not even have said a word, and they don't have to. So we all have that. But they
Nonverbal.
constantly try and dumb us down. I think a lot of this is what a lot of these sort of medications are doing. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
especially Prozac. Well,
Yes,
any
I
kind
took
of
it for years.
antidepressant.
Years. It changed. I was a different person. I developed, it enabled me to be someone that I really wasn't true to my soul. I
Yeah,
mean,
I took them for a while. I can say
and
that
no
it just
judgment. I mean, I
felt
think people,
numb. I was like not happy, not unhappy, just comfortably numb,
yes,
like
kind of
the
gray.
Floyd song says. Yeah. And then I thought, ew, this is awful. I actually don't feel like I'd rather feel. So as you can't just go off them, I thought, well, watch me. And I did.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I drank
Don't
to
you?
make myself feel when I was on them. I think,
Yeah.
that, yeah, I was like, I felt like I needed them, and if I drank a little, then I'd feel. Yeah, I got into and you're not supposed to combine that, but wow.
Bring them. Oh, but
But
you know
yeah,
what? It's all experimenting. I mean, we hear.
exactly. It's all like,
I was reading somewhere. I wish I should write things down when I read them. They just go in my head and they stay there somewhere.
I know.
That the amniotic fluid around us as a fetus is like that river of forgetfulness. It's that river of forgetfulness that we incarnate, and we don't
Right.
remember anything because we.
Drop in.
I think it's the river of Lethe or something like that. But I was reading that is actually representative of us when we go into the womb, and
Huh.
the amniotic fluid that's like surrounding us, so that when we are born with very little memory and have to like start
Right.
again, and
Interesting.
therefore make our mistakes. And maybe we have made those mistakes a million times before, but I think on some level there comes a time when something says, okay, it's enough now. you know my body tells me when it's enough to stop something.
That's good that you're tuned in
It
that way.
tells me in my dreams. Don't you find the same thing? It tells me. I mean, I used to smoke like a chimney,
Yeah.
and I used to have figures appearing in my dreams and saying, listen, you've got to actually stop with the cigarettes, because it's really.
Really? They came in your,
Yeah, they'd come in my dreams, and I'd come as someone I knew, like say a dead grandfather or whatever. But I'm sure these are just aspects of yourself just
right.
appearing as somebody else to kind of give you
Your
advice.
higher
But
self.
no matter where that advice comes from, I think if you listen to it and think, yeah, no, I know this, it's resonating with me. There is a small voice in me that's saying you actually going too far with this, and You're going to damage either your lungs, dash your liver, dash whatever. Rein it in now.
Good.
But
Wow.
sometimes we've got to get to that stage. And, you know, we say that's been making a mistake, and we've all made lots of mistakes. But for me, that's just part of finding out that's not the way to do it. You know, you don't do it like that. So this way.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
Exactly. Yeah, a mistake. I love that. Exactly.
Yeah, and learning. Yeah, I think Lori Ladd, she's a teacher I follow. She says,
"Oh, she's lovely. She's lovely."
I appreciate her. She's really, really drives home the self forgiveness and not even just caring about yourself and the not being mistakes, being learning experiences. If we're if we're saying it's a mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many things that I will never do again. Do again, because I did it the first time and I burnt my fingers. So, okay, I won't do that again. And I won't, you know, stupid things like I won't buy anything that I can't pay cash for it. I don't care. It can be a house, it can be a car.
Really?
I can't. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a
if
good
I
way
can't
to
pay
go.
cash, no, only because I learned the lesson the hard way. I mean, you know, without knowing it, I in my youth, I bought a car and I think it took me something like 6 years to pay off, and it was just a nightmare. So, but that's not for everyone. That's for me. That's just, you know, one of the things I decided.
That's the way it works for you.
That's the way it works for me. It's like,
ideally, I think
I can't casually smoke cigarettes now. I can't. Not a cigarette. I can't smoke.
Yeah.
Not nicotine. I can't. Maybe I could, but I'm too scared to, because I don't want to be hooked onto the all day thing. You know.
You know yourself. You're. Well, I would say, you know, that piece that you have that piece of yourself that might want to. I know I avoid.
I think that piece comes from being sovereign, because if you're sovereign, who are you answering to? You're answering to yourself. Whatever that self is, because that self keeps changing, but you're still answering to yourself. And it could be that small gut feeling that says, don't do it. This person, don't trust them so much. But listen to your gut feeling. And that's part of the self-compassion, because, you know, we're told not to be stupid, or to be, you know, not to be flighty or flimsy or you know, a drama queen, or there's always labels they can push us into.
Right. To gaslight us and keep
to gaslight us when the bottom line is, no, I don't want to do that. And when we can learn to stand up for ourselves in that, even if our voice is shaky, even if we're nervous and all of that, and even if we think, everyone's going to, which a lot of them do, say, you know, throw labels, say this is crazy, or she's a this or she's a that, you know, anti-vaxxer being another favorite, which sometimes the things that they think are insults are actually quite like, I've learned to take as a compliment, really.
Yeah, call me that.
Go ahead. Somebody says it about somebody else, I think, oh, that's somebody I'd like to know.
Exactly.
You know, so
exactly. That's a good point. It's they can't deem
it's turning around. It's turning around like that, I think.
I want to make sure. I think we should probably wrap it up pretty soon.
I think so too. And I think the other thing is also, I'm not here to preach to anybody or tell anybody else how to live their lives or how to do anything whatsoever. I think it's the same with, you can only share your experience and how somehow it has a habit of working out the way it's supposed to. If you just have that self-compassion and you have that courage just to go with it, even if you're the only person that you're talking to sometimes.
Preach it. So I just enjoyed this so much. I want to make sure that everyone that's listening, where to find you, and if you want to hold up a copy. Do you have a copy of your book? Or
well, I've got a copy here. I don't know where my camera is now. Can you see that?
It. Let's see.
That's the Rooster Diaries. And then what have
Hold
I
it up
got here? I've got,
closer.
oh gosh, I've got Rain, which
Yep.
I wrote at the lockdown. I haven't got Flow here somewhere. I've got my, this is, I quoted you in this book, which
Yes.
I put together
Yes.
as a bundle.
Bundle. That's
Yeah.
the, yeah.
And
So your website.
carolinehurry.com at the moment. I'm
Okay.
busy doing another one. I told you I got hacked.
Yes. Tell
So
me
I'm
about
busy,
what you're doing.
well, I'm putting another one together, which which is already, it's kind of there. I just have to design it. It's called Hugger Queen. And in there, I'm going to feature women like you, authors, speakers, people who are like independently sovereign, who just walk their talk and, and live
Love
their
it.
dream. And then I'm going to have I'm edging towards sort of maybe, I find it, I do what I find interesting. So I like making things, like dehydrating things. That's my latest thing.
That's so
Before I used to
cool.
like blending things, or growing things and making stuff like, I make everything myself. I don't buy any commercial stuff, like
That's
some of my
amazing.
face creams, my toothpaste, all of that.
You
So I
got
like
to
making,
stuff
and
up.
it's so easy. It's so easy. I mean, it really is easy. And in that way, I mean, quickly back to homesteading, it can be very expensive, super expensive. If you're going to do proper like homesteading, and you've got to think about your land, and you've got to think about your
That's why
costs.
I
And
never considered it. It was like out of my, it was too much,
well, it's very expensive initially, until you get the ball rolling, and then it becomes like a cycle. So this composts that, but until you sort of working through that, it does cost a lot. That's why I say to start where you can. So, I mean, I was horrified by what went into toothpaste, and what went into anything that has an advert. Basically, if you break it down and you look at the ingredients and then what they're putting in there, what it actually does to people, what they're putting it in there. Sun creams being one huge example.
Oh my goodness.
Sun has been so demonized. I'm just going to say that I have not touched sunblock for well over 30 years.
Really?
I live in one of the hottest countries in the world.
It's incredible.
There's sunshine all the time. And I mean all the time. I don't go and stand in the sun. I just live my day. And occasionally I'll go lie in the sun at the pool on a really, really hot day, until my body says, okay, that's like enough. And I'm perfectly healthy, because whereas I'm finding a lot of the people who got skin cancers and things, what did they have in common? They were slathering themselves in the sunblock and so on.
How much?
And honestly, and when you see all these chemicals, in meantime, all you do, if you're really worried about, get a bit of zinc powder, mix it in with I don't know, face cream, whatever. There's your sunblock. Done. Toothpaste, a bit of bicarb of soda. If you want to get fancy, you can add in some peppermint oil and a bit of coconut oil. Boom. Toothpaste. I don't even bother. I just use the bicarb. Whatever. You can throw in a bit of charcoal. There you go.
We have
it's actually simpler. It can really simplify your life. So that's why I say, but I've actually been doing that for years. Ever since when I was much younger, I learned about the truth about cosmetics.
Yeah, I didn't learn. I never wore much anyways.
No.
I never liked it. I felt like it
would always end up sort of halfway down my face, in any case. And I didn't, so
that's pretty incredible though. I didn't really realize about sunscreen, and I mean, until more recently.
There's a guy called Dr. Cruz who's done some very interesting work as well, as how bad sunglasses are for you. And it's also, we go back into the history. So if you go back to the 1920s and 1930s, especially in like Europe and possibly the States, when people got sick, when they got like tuberculosis or whatever, then the treatment was a lovely sunny place at the coast. the fresh air,
in
bit of,
nature.
skin bathing and nature. Boom, it was the cure-all for everything, and it really worked. And they also had, in those days, they were easily quite able to cure cancer too. Just saying, there were actual clinics that did cure cancer. But then they needed to make money from antibiotics and this and that. And suddenly that was no longer the cure. You had to take these pills 3 times a day, and those pills, and these and those.
Yep.
And, that's where it went. That's what happened. And I mean, for years and years, I worked on women's magazines. So I just grew more and more cynical by the hour. I really did. I really did. Because it was just, these fantasies were just drummed into young women until I said, I can't anymore. Can't do this. Can't do this. Just can't. It's dishonest.
I hear you. I do.
So that's where we end up. So you just think, okay, what am I going to do? Well, not that. And I'm not doing that. And I'm not doing this. So you sort of go, well, all the things you're not going to be doing anymore. Then try and focus on what can I do? Okay.
What can you do?
Right where it takes me. Do a bit of this. Yeah. Oh, it's been so good talking to you.
It's been wonderful.
It's like talking to an old version of me and a good friend.
Yes, likewise.
Thank you.
We have so much here. I'll be in touch with you over the next couple of weeks as I put it together. So.
Oh, well, honestly, thank you so much.
Do you have anything else you want to add on? Now, Rooster Diaries is out on Amazon. You think we're complete?
I think we're done. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You have a good one. Much love.
You too, Jill. And you too. Bye.
Bye.
I don't know how to switch this off, so I'm just going to go let my chickens in now. It's coming tonight.
I'll end it.
So it'll go off.
It will go off. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Jill. Bye.